G'day guys, welcome back to another episode of Adventure News, or maybe for July it should be called Adventure Snooze, because this is typically the part of the year where it gets very quiet because of the big motorcycle shows on the horizon, so everyone's keeping their cards very close to their chest. But Old Solid has dug around and found some stories nonetheless. We've got the middleweight Honda adventure bike to discuss. Moto Guzzi are moving into the off-road scrambler market. We also have CFMoto offering a pretty dirt-capable scrambler slash adventure bike. And lastly, I wanted to talk about the surge in electric motorcycles. I've got two in particular I want to talk about, and one that you can buy right now that is a pretty interesting option if you're looking for an adventure tourer. The first story I wanted to talk about is the Moto Guzzi V850X. So initially I got quite excited about this because the article I first read hinted that it was more based on the V85 adventure bike. So I thought, fantastic. If they're doing a scrambler based on that, that means they're removing some stuff to give it a cleaner, more retro style, which would mean it would lose some weight, which is always a plus in my eyes. And I would assume that it would have kept the off-road capability of the TT adventure bike. But that doesn't look to be the case. It looks like the scrambler is going to be more like a V7 with slightly more off-road capability. So it's going to be a little bit lighter. The suspension is going to be standard height like the V7. It's going to have a little more power than some of the V7 models, but it's going to come with wire wheels and Michelin Anarchies that give it a little bit of off-road capabilities. Think of this more as a competitor to the Triumph Street Scrambler, something that's basically a street bike with some scrambler aesthetics and some off-road looks put on it. Nothing wrong with that. There's a big market for it and more power to you if that's your kind of thing. A little bit disappointed that Moto Guzzi aren't going fully into the dirt world with this one, but it is good to see that they're getting a little more dirt capable with their range. Let me know your thoughts down below. The middleweight adventure bike from Honda has to be one of the most anticipated bikes in the market for a good few years now, and we have some solid rumors to confirm that it is underway. We've got the fact that Honda have confirmed that they're going to be using the NC750 engine, but retuning it to better serve as a middleweight adventure bike and for off-road purposes, as well as the designer of the Africa Twin admitting that there is a hole in the lineup and they do intend to plug that with some form of adventure bike, but not really confirming anything further than that. And we've got some articles that have recently brought back up the middleweight adventure bike. They are speculating that we could see it at the end of the year at the international motorcycle shows, and I definitely don't discount that fact. There is a chance that we could see it this year. The other fact is the information that they're all basing this article off actually isn't any fresh rumors or information. They're just recycling the news that a lot of us have already reported on for the last 1 to 3 years, so there's no new information either. I really do hope that we see it at this year's motorcycle show, as it is a massively anticipated bike and one I'm really excited to see, and I know a lot of people from the comment section are really looking forward to a middleweight Africa Twin or Transalp, as admittedly even Honda has said that it's a big hole in their lineup, and there are a lot of people that love Team Red and want a middleweight adventure bike, so a middleweight to compete with a Tenere 700 would absolutely be fantastic, and variety is the spice of life, so I would love to see one, but I just wanted to set your expectation. It doesn't mean that we're any more likely to see it than last year, but I really hope we do. The next bike is the CFMoto CL-X 700 ADV. This is basically a scrambler version of their big adventure bike, the MT800. It kind of looks like a desert sled from Ducati, and a Triumph Scrambler had a little baby, and this was the result. It doesn't look too bad, which is the first surprising thing. I think China are inching closer and closer to parity with bikes coming out of Japan and the Western world. So it's very interesting that that gap is closing as we can see it. This is actually quite a dirt capable scrambler. It's got that 19-inch front wheel. You can see it's got that higher front fender, so it means you can put some pretty aggressive dirt tires on there as well. It also has specific off-road riding modes. Thought about this actually being used in the dirt. The power's not too shabby either. It's 74 horsepower and got 50 foot-pounds at your disposal as well, which comes in pretty low at 6,500 RPM. And the price is pretty competitive as well. Whether you want to send your money in that particular direction of the world, I will leave up to you to decide. First, we've got Lightning Motorcycles. They're a California-based electric motorcycle company, and it's recently been revealed through patents that they're developing an adventure touring motorcycle. It's not clear how far along they are in this development. There's only sketches for the patents that they applied for China, so there really isn't any information more than a US manufacturer is developing an electric adventure tourer, which is something we haven't seen too much of, or really almost anything of, is electric adventure bikes. But it does look like at least the theme for these electric bikes in the adventure category is they're going for the adventure touring kind of world to start off with. So a little bit off-road capability, but really their focus is on long distance road riding. Next up, I wanted to talk about the Energica Experia. It's an adventure touring motorcycle that's fully electric and currently available on the market. Think of this bike basically as the electric version of a Kawasaki Versys 650 or 1000. It's quite road orientated. It's got cast wheels. They're 17 inch, so they don't have any off-road capability. 5.9 inches of travel, so really not that much. It's about standard for an adventure tourer, but it isn't all that much if you're wanting to do any serious off-road riding. I would categorize this bike as at least a 90% road, 10% dirt kind of thing. But how much range does it have? Well, it's claiming roughly 400 kilometers of city range. So if you're just doing commuting, you should be able to see over 400 kilometers or 260-ish miles if you're still stuck in the imperial system. But it gets interesting if you get out onto the open road. On the highway, they're claiming that this bike will only get you 130 miles. That's roughly 200 kilometers, which really isn't that far. That's less distance than what my CRF 300L can do on a 7.5 litre tank. The other side of this is how much does it weigh to get this close to an internal combustion engine? And the answer is a lot, but not as much as you might think. Bike weighs 259 kilos or roughly 570 pounds, which is heavy for an adventure bike, but it's about the same weight as the category standard for the biggest of adventure tourers. Think of the Triumph 1200 Explorer, the big 1250 GS Adventure. They're all around that fairly heavy mark of the 250-ish kilos, give or take some. The charge time isn't too bad either. They say that you can charge 80% of the battery of this bike in roughly 40 minutes. That's basically the time it takes to get into a coffee shop or into the pub, refuel with a meal or a coffee or whatever you do, and then hop back out on the open roads. You could plan that into a trip easy enough. If we converted the power figures into an internal combustion engine from this Experia, just over 100 horsepower and 85 foot-pounds of torque. So that's a decent amount of torque for sure, and the power is at least okay. But what I want to point out is it would be okay for a middleweight, and this bike weighs as much as a big flagship adventure bikes. Whether it will be the dominant form of transport for time immemorial, I'm not sure. Whether it will be more and more popular as we move forward, I think so. The movement towards more technological developments, I'm all for that. So I'm always interested to see what's on the horizon. Let me know what your thoughts are down below. Until next time, don't forget to stay shiny side up, and I'll see you in the next one. Catch you later.